she's good, and it takes a special person to stand opposite that and hold your ground and be the bounce off. And
For decades, we've known Mark Harmon as the steady, reliable face of TV, a beloved actor we've invited into our homes week after week. His on-screen persona is all about quiet strength, integrity, and dependability. But behind the scenes of his own life, a story far more turbulent than any TV drama was unfolding. A story wrapped in whispers and tabloid headlines. Rumors swirled for years about a bitter family feud that tore the famous Harmon family apart. Now, the story of his sister Kristen's harrowing battle with addiction and the agonizing custody fight for her son that followed can finally be told. It wasn't a story of malice, but of desperation, not of betrayal, but of a brother's controversial choice to try and save his family from itself. And through Kristen's own words, the truth of what really happened has been confirmed, revealing the profound tragedy and the deep, complicated love that defined one of Hollywood's most private families. In the polished world of Hollywood, few families seem to embody the American dream quite like the Harmons. They were golden, a dynasty built on athletic talent, movie star good looks, and an image of perfect, sun-kissed success. The patriarch, Tom Harmon, was a national hero, a Heisman Trophy winner whose name was legend on the football field. His wife, Elise Knox, was a stunning actress and model, a graceful presence on and off the screen. Together, they raised 3 beautiful children in the idyllic suburbs of Burbank, California, a real-life family that seemed as perfect as their TV neighbors, the Nelsons of Ozzie and Harriet fame. Their youngest and only son was Mark Harmon, the future star who would carry the family's legacy into a new generation. But it was his older sister, Kristen, a vibrant and artistic soul whose life would connect with that other famous TV family in a way that promised a fairy tale, only to spiral into a real-life nightmare. This is the tragic story of the Harmon family feud, a saga of love, addiction, and loss that pushed a brother to make an impossible choice. But it was Kristen herself who, in moments of painful honesty, confirmed the truth behind her brother's actions, a truth that says everything about the man he really is. To really get the Harmon family's later struggles, you have to understand just how high they climbed. They weren't just a family. They were an institution, the picture of post-war American success. At the head was Thomas "Tom" Harmon, a figure of almost mythic status. In 1940, as a running back for the University of Michigan, Old 98 was the king of college football, a phenom who landed on the cover of Life magazine and won the Heisman Trophy. But his heroism wasn't just on the gridiron. When World War II broke out, Tom became an Army Air Forces pilot. He was shot down twice, once over South American jungles, and again over China, surviving both and returning a decorated hero. After the war, he smoothly transitioned into a career as one of the nation's most respected sports broadcasters. By his side was the equally radiant Elise Knox. A successful actress and model in the 1940s, Knox was a classic Hollywood beauty who charmed audiences and, eventually, the famous football star. Their marriage was the stuff of newsreels, a union of American royalty. They settled in Burbank, California, in a home that looked like a movie set for the perfect American life. Photos from the 50s and 60s show a glowing family: Tom, handsome and strong; Elise, elegant and poised; and their 3 children, Sharon Kristen, Kelly, and Thomas Mark, looking like they stepped out of a happiness catalog. Kristen, born in 1945, was the eldest, an artistic and sensitive girl growing up in the heart of Hollywood. She attended the private, all-girls Marymount High School, where her classmates were the kids of other legends, like her close friend Mia Farrow. Her sister Kelly would become an actress and model, and was once married to car magnate John DeLorean. And then there was Mark, the baby of the family, born in 1951. He idolized his father, but admitted their relationship was tough. "He raised me hard, and when I say hard, I mean hard. I was taught to fight for everything, Harmon recalled, hinting at the discipline and high expectations that were the foundation of their perfect-looking home. This was the world Kristen Harmon came from, one of prestige, beauty, and a carefully guarded public image. It was a world where success was expected and weakness wasn't easily tolerated. On the surface, the Harmons were a fortress of American values. But this pressure to maintain the fairy tale would contribute to the cracks that were starting to form. The stage was set for a storybook romance, one that would link their dynasty with another, but as Kristen herself would later say, she spent my whole life fighting the fairy tale, first trying to be it, then trying to tell the truth. The fight was about to begin. Living in the same orbit as the Harmons was another of Hollywood's royal families, the Nelsons. Ozzie and Harriet Nelson were America's parents on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and their youngest son, Ricky, was the nation's biggest teen idol, a handsome rock and roll star whose records sold millions. For a young girl in Hollywood, Ricky Nelson was the ultimate prize. For Kristen Harmon, he felt like destiny. Their story began with a schoolgirl crush. Kristen first met Ricky when she was just a 12-year-old fan, but by Christmas Day of 1961, things had changed. She was a stunning 16-year-old, and Ricky, then 21, was completely smitten. Since their families were already friends, the relationship was celebrated by both the Harmons and the Nelsons. It seemed like a perfect match, a merger of two great American entertainment dynasties. A year later, they announced their engagement. The wedding, though, wasn't a leisurely, well-planned affair. On April 20th, 1963, a 17-year-old Kristen Harmon married Ricky Nelson in a Catholic ceremony. The reason for the rush became clear 6 months later, when their first child, Tracy, was born. Ricky later called it a shotgun wedding, a frantic start to a marriage under the intense glare of public scrutiny. Almost immediately, Kristen's life was swallowed whole by the Nelson machine. She became a regular cast member on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, playing herself, the new daughter-in-law. Her real life and her TV life were now one and the same. In 1965, she and Ricky co-starred in the romantic comedy Love and Kisses, a movie that seemed to mirror their own young, married life. From the outside, they were living the dream. They were young, beautiful, famous, and rich. Their family grew quickly. After Tracy, they welcomed twin sons, Gunnar and Matthew, in 1967, and a fourth child, Sam, in 1974. They lived an extravagant life of parties, tours, and camera flashes. In Kristen's words, they were hippie rock and rollers, but the foundation of this fairy tale was shaky. The rushed wedding, the pressures of Ricky's career, and their lavish lifestyle all started to take a toll. The rock and roll world was filled with dangers they weren't prepared for. "We did what everyone else was doing all those years," Kristen later explained, a simple summary of the chaos brewing beneath the surface. The fairy tale was starting to unravel. The picture-perfect image of the young, happy couple didn't last. Behind closed doors, a darker reality was taking root. The rock and roll world of the 60s and 70s was a landscape of excess, and Kristen and Ricky Nelson dove right in. With his teen idol fame fading, Ricky was forced to tour constantly just to keep up with their lifestyle. Kristen, trying to stay connected to him, joined him on the road. "I tried to be one of the guys," she recounted, explaining she wanted to fix the marriage by going on the road and being involved in road stuff that is really not good for anyone. That road stuff was drugs and alcohol. What started as casual use soon spiraled into a shared addiction. "At first we were in it together," she said. "After a while we were totally messed up, both of us. The toxicity poisoned everything." Recognizing the danger, Kristen tried to pull them out of it. "I got into therapy, and so did he for a while," she revealed. "But then he started not showing up." She pleaded with her family for help. "I tried telling my family, there's a drug problem here and we've all got to help. but they totally denied there was anything wrong. This denial left her feeling completely alone. By 1975, the marriage was in shambles. They separated and nearly divorced before a brief reconciliation, but the fighting and substance abuse were relentless. In October 1980, Kristen filed for divorce for good. What followed was a nasty 2-year legal battle that exposed all the ugliness. They both accused each other of drug abuse and of being an unfit parent. The divorce was finalized in December 1982, leaving Kristen a single mother of 4. The years that followed were a blur of instability and deepening addiction. She admitted she continued to use drugs and drank quite heavily. She was often too drunk to paint for a living and took a job as an assistant casting director for just $200 a week. Her youngest son, Sam, spent time being cared for by his Aunt Kelly and his grandparents, Tom and Elise. The fairy tale had dissolved. Kristen Harmon Nelson, once a golden girl, was now isolated, broke, and losing her battle with addiction. And just when it seemed things couldn't get any worse, an unthinkable tragedy would shatter her world completely. On New Year's Eve, 1985, Ricky Nelson's story came to a tragic end. The private plane carrying him and his band to a concert in Texas crashed near DeKalb. There were no survivors. Ricky Nelson was dead at 45. The news was a shockwave across the country. For Kristen, it was an obliteration. Despite their bitter divorce, he was the father of her children and had been the center of her adult life. His death pushed Kristen over the edge. Her grief, piled on top of her addiction, sent her spiraling. That's when her younger brother, Mark Harmon, stepped in. Mark, by then a star on the hit drama Saint Elsewhere, saw his sister drowning and refused to let her go under. He begged her to check into rehab and get the help she so desperately needed. For Kristen, who had felt so alone, her brother's intervention was a lifeline. "Nobody but my brother could have talked me into this because I trusted him," she stated. "A voice inside me said, 'For once in your life, let somebody help you.'" She listened. She checked into a clinic and completed the program, emerging with a new sense of hope. But that triumph was shockingly cut short. On the very day she left rehab in 1987, she was met with legal papers. Mark Harmon and his new wife, actress Pam Dauber, were suing for permanent custody of her youngest son, 12-year-old Sam. "I was feeling very proud and happy," she recalled. "Suddenly I had 2 hours to find a lawyer who would help me keep my son. At first I thought it was a joke. Where's the punchline?" There was no punchline. The family feud erupted into a public inferno. Mark and Pam argued that Kristen's history of drug abuse made her an unfit mother. Sam's psychiatrist testified that the boy was terrified of his mother's mood swings and had called her a dragon. The court awarded Mark and Pam temporary custody and issued a restraining order against Kristen. Kristen fought back hard. Her lawyers accused Pam Dauber of having used cocaine herself on the set of Mork and Mindy and threatened to subpoena her co-star Robin Williams to testify. Dauber fiercely denied the allegations on the stand. The courtroom drama had become a toxic, tabloid spectacle. The Harmon family, once the image of unity, was publicly tearing itself apart. The bitter custody battle raged on, with family secrets laid bare for the world to see. For Mark Harmon, who started the fight to protect his nephew, the cost had become too high. The goal was to save Sam, not destroy the entire family. Just as Pam Dauber was about to return to the stand, Mark called a ceasefire. He reached out to his sister's attorney and said, "We don't want to go any further with this. Too much blood has been spilled." He dropped the custody suit. While Kristen's lawyer called it an unconditional surrender, Mark's actions showed he knew the public war was causing too much damage. In a stunning turn, Mark and Kristen walked out of the courthouse arm in arm, a united front. They had reached an agreement. Kristen would keep full custody of Sam, Mark would get visitation rights, and the three of them, Kristen, Mark, and Sam, agreed to enter family therapy to begin the long road to healing. Beaming with relief, Kristen told reporters, "Sam's coming home." The legal battle was over, but the emotional scars remained. However, time and therapy slowly began to mend the family. In 1988, Kristen married TV producer Mark Tinker, who encouraged her to rediscover her art. She began painting again, and her career flourished, with collectors like Jacqueline Kennedy and Mia Farrow buying her work. She even wrote an autobiography, Out of My Mind. Her marriage to Tinker ended in 2000, but she had reclaimed her identity. Most importantly, she healed her relationship with her son. In a 2016 interview, a grown-up Sam Nelson spoke warmly of his mother. "As you get older, things that were important aren't important anymore," he said. "You work through them, or you don't. I think we're in a good way together, and we have a good relationship." It was a testament to their resilience. Mark Harmon, always private, rarely spoke of the ordeal again. His lawyer's statement at the time said it all. "I think they all realized that this was tearing the family apart." The story of the Harmon family feud is a heartbreaking look at how a Hollywood fairy tale can curdle into a dark tragedy. It's a cautionary tale about fame, addiction, and the damage it can cause. But underneath it all, it's also a story of a complicated, enduring love. Kristen Harmon's life was full of struggle, but her own words confirm what many hoped was true all along, that her brother, Mark Harmon, acted not out of malice, but out of a desperate, clumsy attempt to protect his family. His intervention, however painful, was rooted in a trust she admitted was key to her survival. On April 27, 2018, Kristen Harmon Nelson died suddenly of a heart attack. She was 72. Her life was a storm of incredible highs and devastating lows, a journey from golden girl to troubled soul, and finally, to a woman who found peace in her art and healing with her family. The feud that once defined them in the public eye had long since quieted, proving that even the deepest wounds can, with enough time, finally begin to heal. If you're interested in more in-depth stories about Hollywood's most fascinating and complex families, make sure to subscribe to our channel for future updates.